Hello, dear friends. Welcome back. As far as you know, there is still a part that is unfinished. It's my work on copy of Rembrandt's Flora. So stay tuned and let's go. We know of at least 3 significant women in his life who posed for him as models, taking on various roles and appearing in different guises. These women offered him not only artistic inspiration. In this video, I will show the whole process of Rembrandt's Laura copy with my colorful pencils, and I will also tell you a bit about his greatest muses, his wife, and a couple of lovers. So Saskia, his first and the only beloved wife. She was an orphan when she came to Amsterdam to live with her cousin. Her cousin's husband was a Protestant pastor, and Saskia herself was a woman from a noble family, though not from the most prominent ones. By that time, Rembrandt van Rijn was already a well-known artist. They two met through her uncle Hendrik, who happened to be Rembrandt's art dealer. Saskia lived a quiet, modest life in the home of the Reformed Church pastor. When Saskia and Rembrandt met, they quickly decided to marry. She had no parents, so he formally asked her brothers and sisters for her hand in marriage. And imagine this: Rembrandt, an 28 years old celebrated artist, and Saskia, just 22, they marry in Amsterdam. And barely a year later, Rembrandt paints the prodigal son in the tavern, in which this modest young woman is portrayed as a harlot in a brothel. Imagine the reaction of the preacher whose cousin appeared in the role of a prostitute in a painting by Rembrandt. In Saskia's serious, reserved and modest face, we can see how unfamiliar and almost impossible it was for her to take on the role of a courtesan, sitting on the lap of the unrestrained prodigal son. The atmosphere of luxury, revelry, and debauchery. I can say with certainty that Rembrandt had a wonderful sense of humor. Nevertheless, their life together continued, and Rembrandt's career prospered. He developed a passion for collecting antiquities, and his art dealer regularly organized auctions. At these gatherings, Rembrandt would indulge himself without restraint, acquiring rare manuscripts, accessories for his wife, exotic ornaments. He took great pride in adorning Saskia with these treasures. During this period, he portrayed her several times as Flora, the Roman goddess of spring and fertility. Yet their domestic happiness was overshadowed by tragedies. Saskia gave birth to 3 children, each of whom died shortly after birth. When she conceived for the 4th time, her health was already in decline. She gave birth to a son, Titus, but the boy was still an infant when she passed away. This was a loss that struck Rembrandt with devastating force. On having mourned her, he soon revealed his weakness for women. While he immersed himself in work in his studio, little Titus was cared for by a widow named Gertje. In time, she offered her companionship to Rembrandt himself, and their connection became an intense physical passion. He lost his head over her, showering her with gifts belonged to his wife and openly maintaining their sinful relationship. During these years, he produced several erotic etchings and even acquired works by other artists on similarly piquant themes. Although no specific works portraying Cartier have been definitely identified, the most striking is the case of Danae. Radiographic examination has revealed that the painting was altered. The purity and innocence of Saskia, with the body covered with fabric, has disappeared. Instead, we see a completely naked body in a rather seductive, provocative pose. The facial features no longer resemble Saskia. Instead, Danae seems to have acquired the likeness of Rembrandt's new mistress, his object of insatiable lust. And when Rembrandt decided to end his affair with Cartier, the rupture turned into a bitter dispute that reached the courts. She demanded either a substantial lifetime allowance or marriage. He refused the sum she named and set about persuading the judges that she was mentally unfit and should be confined to an asylum. And she spent 5 years there until she was released and died soon. Yet there is an opinion that the reason why he so quickly got rid of Cartier was a new 20 years younger handmaid who would later give him a daughter, Cornelia, and remain by his side until the end of his life, managing his household and business, acting as his art dealer, and supporting him during difficult times of financial hardship. There is no definitive precise evidence that a number of paintings depict Henrietje, but historians have concluded that there is a series of works showing women whose features point to one and the same person, implying Henrietje. One well-known painting, Bathsheba at her bath, is almost certainly depicting Henrietje. Unlike the well-known theme, this work turns to a fictional moment of the Old Testament story. Bathsheba is not shown bathing under the gaze of King David, who desired another man's wife, but after her encounter with him. Having conceived his child, she now appears sorrowful and pregnant, holding a letter from the king. The scene conveys Bathsheba's moral dilemma: to remain faithful to her husband or to submit to her king. Since around this period Henrietje gave birth to Rembrandt's daughter Cornelia, it may be assumed that Henrietje's pregnancy inspired the artist in creating this painting. This confirmation cannot be found in Wikipedia, yet according to one source, the fantastic and my favorite Juno is painted with Henrietje as a model. Rembrandt was unable to complete it as she died in 1663. However, in 1665, at the request of a broker, he finished the work. For many years, the painting disappeared and found in 20th century, if I'm not mistaken. So compare the features and you will most likely recognize Henrietje here in this remarkable work, one of his finest depictions of a woman. The mystery surrounding Sarah awaiting Tobias, or the girl in bed, is quite fascinating. Rembrandt's signature is executed in a trompe-l'oeil style upon the folds of the bed cover, and one fold turns precisely at the place of the date. Thus, it remains unclear in which year the painting was actually created. 1641, 43, 47 is noted by the museum in Vienna, or perhaps even in the 50s. This raises the intriguing question of who is actually depicted before us. Is it a real person? Was the model Rembrandt's wife Saskia or Gertie? There are suggestions that the painting is connected to Danae, which was repainted in 1643 with outlines resembling Gertie. Alternatively, if the painting was indeed created later, in the 50s, the model might have been Hendrikie as well. Even though scholars agree that this painting couldn't have been made later than 1643, based on comparing of technical features of Danae and Sarah, where Danae is executed in more refined manner. However, I already mentioned in my previous video that the technical features of Rembrandt's work do not actually show the improvement over the years. The way he paints is not about developing or perfecting his technique. What makes Rembrandt unique is his ability to convey mood, intensity, dynamics, drama, light and shadow. Some of his later works were painted rather roughly, but that was never the essence of his mastery. And we know he was capable of painting magnificently and with striking realism. Remember The Night Watch? But even after that masterpiece, which truly represents the peak of his technical brilliance, many of his later works were no longer executed with the same precision, not with the same refinement. Instead, Rembrandt painted meanings. He was less concerned with flawless technique and more intent on capturing the essence, the drama, and the inner truth of his subjects. That's why we can't simply argue that Sarah, painted in a less precise manner, must have been created earlier than Danae. While that reasoning has some logic to it, for me the resemblance between Heinriche and Sarah is striking, which suggests that perhaps this painting was in fact created later. And what do you think? Let's share opinions and try to unravel this mystery together.
I roughly added some illusion of leaves and forest and branches, since it's not important, so just will look like that. But maybe in this place I will add some gouache to make it look like more like forest, like this masses of forest. Yeah, and some additions, some small accents with bright colors. And I guess that's it. I didn't mean to make it like precise copy, very detailed study, just to catch the essence of Flora and to look it more or less 3D.
So, in the end, I added some highlights with white gouache, plus a bit of yellow and ochre here and there to bring out the details. Then I decided to darken the background with paint, because I just didn't like the way the pencil looked. Honestly, it's really tricky to show foliage with a pencil, especially on textured paper like this. Definitely not going to use watercolor paper for colored pencils again, especially the cheap kind like this. With round and flat brushes, I build up the leaves, added shadows, and in some spots let the light shine through. It was so much easier and faster this way. I feel like I really achieved what I wanted. At the very end, I brought in my favorite micron liners. Maybe I went a little overboard in some areas, especially on the face, where the contrast turned out a bit too strong. Yet I think it actually works for the mood. And that's it. That's my little Flora study inspired by Rembrandt. I really hope you liked it, as well as the spicy stories from the master's personal life. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks so much for your attention and your interest. It really helps my channel grow. My mission here is to spread love for art, history, and creativity. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next video.